Hades here, welcome back to another art study. In this one I'll be talking about mannequinising the figure. I began practicing this about 6 weeks ago and I want to share some stuff that I've learned. When I first got started with this, it was quite a struggle, so being able to share the things that I've learned so far I think should be helpful. You know, for those of you just getting started with this, you won't have to struggle as much as I did. There are loads of mannequins out there, but I've chosen to stick with a mannequin made up of boxes and cylinders because that lets me focus on getting the proportions and perspective correct. You know, not having to worry about the complex anatomy just yet. But of course, somewhere down the line, I will up the complexity of the mannequins that I use. But for now, we're just keeping it simple. Okay, so to start off with, I will establish a mannequin reference sheet, a male figure on the left and a female figure on the right. Like I said earlier, there are many variations of mannequins out there. Feel free to modify them in whatever way you find most approachable for you. So as you can see here, we have a simple box for the head, the upper torso and the pelvis, a cylinder for the abdominal region, and cylinders for the limbs also. For the hands and feet, I normally go with these modified box forms, but we'll see more of that later in the video. In terms of proportions, this mannequin is about 7.5 to 8 heads tall and about 2.5 to 3 heads wide. And just to be clear, these aren't hard and fast. This is just what I most often come across when I look at other reference sheets. For the landmarks, you can see I've labelled the acromion, which is next to the ends of the clavicle. This is where the top of the box starts, and the base of the sternum is the bottom of the box. And then just a bit below that is where the base of the ribs are. You might choose to have the bottom of the box be where the base of the rib cage is. It really is up to you, so feel free to make changes where you want. Onto the pelvis, the box of the pelvis, we have the top being the iliac crest, and then just a bit below that is the anterior superior iliac spine. And the reason I've chosen to add that landmark, the anterior superior iliac spine, is that it shows through clearly on the surface. It's that bony protrusion at the hips. And so when I see that on the surface, I know where the iliac crest would be. And of course, the bottom of that pelvis box is where the crotch region is. A quick note, however, the anterior superior iliac spine shows through more clearly on the female figure, and you can actually see where the iliac crest is easier on the male figure. But of course, this will all depend on the levels of body fat. I'd recommend having a skeleton model reference handy, and maybe just as an exercise you could identify these landmarks on your reference. Not shown here, but from the back, if you look for those two dimples, that is where the posterior superior iliac spine is, and that can also help us determine the level of the iliac crest. I have a copy of the Stonehouse anatomy book, and I use that as a reference guide whenever I'm a bit lost looking at my reference. Another thing to note is that in both the female and male figure, there is a forward tilt of the pelvis, more in the female figure than male figure. I don't always add this in my reference. It just depends on what I see in my reference. If I feel emphasizing it is a good idea, then I will. If not, I won't think about it too much. Also note the wider hips on the female figure. Okay, here are some perspective considerations. There are 1,000,001 tutorials out there on perspective, but I briefly want to go over some stuff here. So you should of course be comfortable drawing cylinders in free space. So we need to remember that the degree of an ellipse decreases as it turns away from our line of sight. So I've drawn a short sequence of rotations of a cylinder here, starting with one end facing us directly, and then rotating it in steps. And as you can see, that face becomes narrower and narrower as it turns away from us. It's taken up less of our field of view, but at the same time we start to see the side of that cylinder as well. The red line that you see there is the minor axis, and the minor axis is just the line that cuts an ellipse in half along its shortest path. And knowing this is useful because if you extend that line back, it goes towards a vanishing point. And this is exactly how we can orient it however we want in space. And so you think, where is the minor axis? Once you know that, you're going to be able to draw a cylinder correctly. So here I've drawn the minor axis on the 3/4 view that I did for the reference sheet. If this is not making any sense to you, be sure to look around and find other tutorials. I might end up making one if there's enough of a demand. I've used the 3/4 view from the reference sheet to highlight some of these minor axes. And just to get comfortable, you can just draw the heads, the pelvis, or whatever part might be troubling for you. And coming back to the feet, you can see I don't really have a set form for the foot. I just go off whatever I see in my reference. To learn more about the hands, be sure to check out my previous video, where the palm is just a box and the thumb attachment is also a box. Boxes and cylinders, no matter how you look at them, they are stiff. However, we can add gesture to these forms by manipulating them with some bending and twisting. I actually find this quite hard, but a fellow streamer shared these pillowcase gesture drawings a while back, and I used that to help me. Alright, let's get into some practice. In this first pose, the model seems to be preparing for some kind of kick, and so they're lifting the leg, and at the same time they're going to have to lean back to balance out the pose. And we're going to start to see a little bit of the underside of that pelvis box. Sometimes I'll just get up and mimic a pose just to see what I can learn from it. I do my best to try and draw parts of the forms that I can't see, just to help build my spatial awareness. Here you can see with the left leg, I've drawn more of a gestural line, but I've still got the cylinder in mind. Again, here with this third pose, I try to make the poses as gestural as I can, even though I am using these stiff forms. Here in this pose, we have a nice long gestural line that goes from the head all the way down to the extended leg. Antonio from Artwad made a video on Proco's channel, and they quoted someone who said, if you can't make simple shapes interesting, then how can you expect to make complex ones interesting? Here in this pose, we have the model with their back toward us and the camera is pointing down towards them. Whenever I'm practicing something for the first time, I like to do the practice traditionally and with some kind of permanent media. I usually go for a ballpoint pen. I end up learning a lot faster this way because I have to be deliberate, knowing that every mark that I make is permanent. As the saying goes, fail faster. I do try and keep this mindset when I'm drawing digitally, but I sometimes do make corrections whenever I feel like I need to. If you have a bad habit of undoing constantly, why not step away from digital for a while and grab a sketchbook and pen? Remember, this is all practice, so you are expected to make mistakes. Here in this pose, we have the camera pointing upwards towards the model, so we can see the undersides of a lot of these forms. This last pose was definitely the most difficult, most likely because it's a foreshortened pose and there's just a lot that I can't see. So I have to figure out where these forms sit in space. And now that I'm looking back at the time lapse, I definitely feel like the left leg is a bit out of place. we've made it to the end of the video. I thank you all for making it this far. If you have any thoughts or comments, leave them down in the comment section below. If you want to see more content from me, be sure to subscribe and like, and remember that you can follow me on Twitch and Instagram for even more content. And as a bonus, I will leave a Gumroad link down below where you can access a time-lapse of some of the mannequins I did while practicing before making this video. I will see you all in the next one.